Namaskar and welcome to this exciting new episode of Sattology Debunking Mythology. Sattology means science of truth or study of truth. Opposite of that is mythology, which means science or study of fake, lie, or imagination. I repeat this every day so that you can understand that we need to stop using the terms created by the Western academics for their own convenience. It's not meant for you or me, but it's meant for their own convenience. The rest of the world history has more proofs of destruction than of creation by the European colonizers. So today I have a very, very special guest. He's a financial expert and he speaks on finance related topics generally and also comments on politics sometimes. So without delay, let us welcome Sri Sumit Mehta from Mumbai.
Thank you very much, Aditya ji. Thank you very much for for inviting me in this show. Thank you very much.
Namaskar. So when we come talk about inflation and stagflation and all kinds of technical terms are there. So the global inflation is so my first question is, so in the past also, if we go back to ancient civilizations, then there is no description of inflation anywhere. But now in the modern economies, when you say modern systems, a lot of inflation we talk about. So what are these current inflationary pressures which are being created by the West? How they are affecting the world, according to you?
You have rightly mentioned that inflation probably is a recent concept because inflation in the current era is largely linked with the Keynesian economics where we talk about deficits, that government can operate only on deficit to boost the economy. Now, this is something which was unheard of at one point of time in ancient India when the empires or the kingdoms built up wealth which could be used in the bad times, which was stored in form of gold, diamonds, jewelry, it's, even grains, food grains and cereals and everything. We have come with a completely new idea in the post Great Depression era, or rather it could be before that also into some extent. But what has happened is inflation is driven by the mismatch in demand and supply, which impacts the pricing. At the same time, there is the input cost. Now, what is happening in the current scenario is with the US sanctions on Russia, there is a glut in there is a problem in the international markets. First thing is the gas supplies, the gas prices or the crude oil prices have shot up through the roof. This has impacted the fuel prices, and in turn there is a impact on the inflation. Now in India, when I talk to my friends who are in bond markets, they give a very simple equation that whenever there is an increase in fuel prices in India, that is the gasoline and diesel, petrol or diesel prices, the increase in inflation will be around 0.5% in the next month. So there is a roughly 21 to 25 days gap lag after, wherein there will be an impact on the prices. So what I am trying to convey here is that largely this inflation, largely in India, and we can come back to US thereafter, is large in India. The impact of inflation is largely due to import of higher priced crude oil and in turn higher fuel prices. That is what has impacted inflation in India. At the same time, there is a little bit of impact of food price inflation because of increase in the price, MSP and other pricing impacts. So that is on one side. Coming back to US, the scene is very bad because US is much more a liberal and open market. I will say a free market where fuel prices change every day, unlike in India where it is largely controlled and dictated by the government. So government also has the power to reduce the fuel price by reducing taxes, which government of India, the federal government of India did very recently. And a few states followed the suit and few states haven't followed the suit. But that's okay. But that helped in reducing the fuel prices and in turn reduce the impact of inflation on the people. However, in US, because the fuel prices are rising on a daily basis, that has impacted the inflation. So this is on net when we talk about the reasons for inflation which are coming in now. Now, second thing is why it is happening in the current era. because we are largely dependent on various other places, countries for food grains, for fuel and everything. So it's an integrated global supply chain. Now, if there is there is a problem in some region, the product coming from that region, supply gets impacted, in turn, the prices get impacted. That is one factor which we have discussed very just now, that is crude oil and fuel prices, or even gas for that matter. Rather, Europe is facing a big problem of gas due to the supplies being curtailed by Russia. So even that will have an impact on the pricing. Now, there is a second thing, is the monetary economics part. That when government increases liquidity in the market, the money excess liquidity also goes in for speculative purposes. So you have seen that in US, after the stimulus which came in after the financial meltdown, global financial meltdown, or the Lehman crisis, lot of money went into speculation of commodities. So you saw corn prices and all those shoot up the roof because there was a lot of liquidity flowing into those products. So money is fungible. It can go anywhere. It can be used to give money to give to the poor, or build houses, or create employment, or uh, even for speculation in the commodity markets or the equity markets. So this particular phenomenon of central banks intervening, reducing the rates, increasing the liquidity, increasing the supply of money in the capital markets or the bond, market, so that the financial intermediaries and participants can use that money for, trading on other exchanges and other commodities, or, bourses, that impacts inflation to a great effect, to the great extent in US. In India, it is not so easy because there are some regulations, but US, we understand the system, you know it as well. So this is my background of why inflation is happening right now versus why probably it was not happening in the past.
Yeah, the inflation you correctly said is a Keynesian economy, and also the global supply dependence. The all the lands in the world, whether it's in Africa or India or US, they produce their own types of food grains. And when you look at the West, most of their food products are based on vegetables or grains like wheat. Europe also produces wheat to some extent. But after colonization, they thought it was cheaper to get it from other places, and that's how they went on colonization route. And the local food structures, the local food habits, which are based on now imported food products or processed foods, which are actually more profitable for people, but they destroy the local soil a lot. So do you think it has inflation, modern inflation has connection with the lack of connection with their own grounds, also their own lands?
I think yes, and I cannot comment more about US, but look at fertilizers. Fertilizers are made from products. Urea is made from naphtha. Fertilizers are made using potash. Now, Russia is one of the largest suppliers of potash in the world. India is dependent upon potash fertilizers from Russia. Now, look at how the prices have shot up. Compare that in India. I'll just give you an example of India so that it helps you understand the way India is fighting or controlling inflation. Of course, it is not really very successful model, but at least people feel the pain much lesser. Okay, so in India, the price of fertilizers has shot up beyond 3,500 rupees. Whereas India is giving the same, the government of India is giving the same potash fertilizers to farmers at a much subsidized price of 300 rupees per kg. So there is around a 3,200 plus kind of subsidy given to the farmers. This is to ensure that firstly, we ensure that the cost of production for a farmer does not increase, because if there is an increase over there, significant increase, farmers will find it difficult. And especially because in India, majority of the farmers are small and marginal farmers with a land holding of less than 1 hectare. So for them to buy much higher priced fertilizers, urea would not be viable. So, or it will create another debt trap for them, because they may have to borrow money from some money lender to buy fertilizers and everything. So government has kept it low, and in turn, subsequently what happens is government does not have to increase the price of minimum support price to buy the same farm produce from the farmers, especially food grains. So in India, we are fighting it in this manner, but the cost of fertilizers is also a significant part of the overall farm cost. And we have moved away from organic farming. I'm not advocating that we should immediately migrate from the current farming systems to the organic farming systems. I'm not advocating them, because that was one of the mistakes done in Sri Lanka. And we are seeing the pressure, the pain and the pressure faced by Sri Lanka now due to the economic crisis it created due to this shift. But my suggestion is slowly, with and incrementally, if India can go back to organic farming, which we were doing, say even 150, 200 years ago, we can actually manage things much better, because then our dependency on imported products, especially petroleum, naphtha based urea and potash and all that, can be reduced. And we have seen that there are small experimental farms by people who are very interested in experimenting and promoting organic farming. They have tried it. They have definitely tried it, and there are very positive results, because nitrogen fixing is done by uh, using onions or cultivating onions. Similarly, cow dung and manure and all those things are used to again fertilize the land. So it is very much possible, just that we need to do it gradually. We cannot do it overnight by migrating or shifting with a kind of Tughlaqi firman. So this is my view on this particular thing. We need to go back to the basics.
You know, Gita talks about Annat Bhavanti Bhutani, Parjanya Dhanna Sambhava. Focus
Sorry,
on
I'm not able to hear. Can you be a bit loud, please?
yes. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, better.
So the let me just move it closer here. So the international media, especially the US media, the Bhagavad Gita talks about the importance of food grains. And the food grains are, they actually, we all can talk about technology and everything else. But if there is no food, how are you going to develop technology? For the first time in the history, the US is facing shortage of wheat, baby food, and the food prices have gone up 15 to 20%, which nobody is disclosing actually, of their income. And I'm talking about coupled with the inflation and plus the actual price rise. Now, do you think the global dependency model works if the politics also comes into play? See, if the politics is not there, everything is smooth. The politics is that the US wants to maintain their leadership. I call it the hegemony over the others. And so what do you say? What do you think is the future of the world in few months down the line? How much inflation can go up? How much food prices can go up across the world? And we do not even talk about Africa. They are facing the major brunt because they are also dependent on food exports from Russia and Ukraine and also India. So what is your view on this?
Well, making any predictions on how inflation would shape up or what would be the pricing is very difficult, because we don't know what are the geopolitical factors at play. Now, India has stopped exports of wheat. Russia is not exporting wheat. Ukraine wheat is not available in the market due to the blockade. In that situation, what will be the price of wheat? It is anybody's imagination. India is sending delegations to around 17 countries to have something like a G2G, a government to government agreement, wherein government of India will supply wheat to those foreign governments so that they can address their need for food grains. Okay, but we have definitely banned merchant exports of wheat. So whatever will go from India, it will be on a G2G basis, and that too depending upon the situation in India, the demand supply dynamics, the kind of output that is there, the overstocking which we have. As about US, I think it is a disaster that they themselves created by sanctioning Russia. If they wouldn't have sanctioned Russia, probably they would have got wheat. If they wouldn't have troubled Russia using Ukraine, then probably this whole war wouldn't have started. In which situation, I think we never know where it would go and who would break first, who blinks first. Now, Russia is self-sufficient at least in wheat and all those things, so it doesn't have much of a problem. But how long can the West continue without gas, without crude oil or such high cost crude oil, without wheat? That's a question which nobody can answer. I was talking to some German think tanks, and even they were wondering that from where will we source wheat. And when we were discussing, I said India is available, and the next day, or I think that 2 days thereafter, India also banned exports of wheat. So I think we cannot really predict in numerical terms, but yeah, if this matter is not sorted or resolved, I think there is a bigger problem.
Indian wheat considered, even though it looks a smaller grain, but it has the highest protein content in the world. People do not know that.
Wow,
It is
that's wonderful.
14% protein. It is
Mhm.
considered amongst the best in terms of protein. And I also recently found out, because of I was looking at before discussion, I was looking at the prices and the protein content. Indian wheat protein content is 14%, and whereas the industry average is around 13%, 13.5%. And so Indian wheat is not, they used to reject it because it used to have a lot of chaff, lot of it was not very clean. That's how they used to reject it. So now they are coming to the terms that yes, Indian wheat is quality. Now another question comes into the point: are these quality benchmarks? See, so far we have seen the international bodies have created these quality restrictions on other developing countries so that they can manage the price. And that's how they used to pay less price to someone with a less protein content and high price to a higher protein content. So, do you think these international bodies have a large role to play in inflation today?
Not really sure on that because there are also safety norms in agriculture. Look at specific areas like Punjab where they are overdone with bore wells, and now the water is also contaminated with arsenic. Now, with that kind of water being used to cultivate wheat, the wheat is really not great. And I don't think any country will want substandard products or products which have some health hazards or any such issues. So, to that extent, I believe that various countries, including West and the WTO, is in its own right correct to stipulate certain standards. I don't have an issue with that. We need to look into it. Let me give you an example of milk. Now, in milk, globally, the cow is tracked back. So we know that this milk is coming from which cow. Whereas in India, it is not possible. Now, when there is an outbreak, now in India, the outbreak is also not possible because it is so distributed that one single person does not hold more than three cows, and 92% of the households are not more than three cows. So it is widely distributed. So if there is any problem, it will not have a huge impact. Unlike in US, where there is a whole dairy farm and every cow may get infected and the milk may be heavily contaminated. But need for tracking that is very important, and Indian government has also realized this particular thing, so that we can set and work on the highest of the standards when it comes to quality of product that we are giving agriculture produce, ensuring that it is not contaminated, it doesn't have any kind of microbes or anything that can hurt. So I'm pro this particular thing. Aditi.
When you compare the economy in the pre, uh, I'm a student of Rama and Mahabharata, but I do not see the Vanijya, the trade. Trade has been an important factor right from the time of Ramayana. And India has shown trade, and we never face global crises like this today. And so, like, act global, act local, and think global. This is the new mantras today nowadays of most of the countries. Everybody wants to build an export economy, and there are pitfalls of just an export oriented economy, because then the quality of food available in the local markets reduces, because there can be different quality standards in other places. So the best food actually is sent out for getting maximum profits, and the and the remaining food is left for local consumption. And so the main gainer of an export oriented economy is the buyer who is buying in bulk. Other countries are buying in bulk and they've on based on their own currencies. So do you think that this think global, act local market can work long term?
I think it will work because there is a demand. Only factor which you rightly mentioned is good quality product going outside India and the low quality product being in India. I can relate with it because I find the biggest problem in sourcing the best quality mangoes. The best quality mangoes leave India and we find it in Middle East. And the pricing of the same mango, a higher quality mango in Middle East, is nearly the same of what we are paying in India for a substandard product, a much smaller, sized fruit. So I rather believe that we cannot have controls. I don't believe in controls. I am an advocate of free trade, but free trade does not mean laissez-faire that everything is open and we can loot. I am a supporter of the kind of restrictions that government has put on wheat or exports of wheat and sugar. I am an advocate of that because the first factor is to look within. But at the same time, we need to make markets more efficient so that people can source. Today, what is happening is if I want to go and source it from a orchard in Ratnagiri or Devgarh, which is not more than 300, 400, 500 kilometers from Bombay, it is not possible for me because of restrictions, APMC, this, that. Rather, if government can come out with some kind of innovation, which they have done, because now India is setting up its own online deliver market place, okay, to counter the hegemony of Amazon and Flipkart, the online retailers. If farmers can be allowed to come over there, they can also list their products, including the best quality. They may charge 10% more. That's okay. We can pay for that, but we should ensure that there is a marketplace so that the sourcing agents of foreign buyers who are able to reach out and buy the best quality, and then we are left with the second and the third and the fourth grade, we can also source the best quality product. But I'm not in favor of restricting anything. We should have a free market so that the people, and what will happen is, if in case Indians have access to the same product, the same big size good quality fruits, and we can buy it at probably the same rate at which they are exporting in the international markets, probably they will get a higher yield on the same product in the international market, because they will say that we buy, might as well want this, we are ready to pay a higher price. So in that free competition, Indian farmer will only benefit out of it. That is my view.
See, food taxes in all the developing countries have always been low, like the food taxes. The as compared to India, like the practically US had no food tax, generally 1% or 2%, but in India has been 5%, 10% in terms of sales. So naturally the cost becomes less abroad than in India. But if you look at from the global perspective, like for example, I'll take the example of avocado. Everyone knows that it's the Mexico which has the lead, Mexico, Peru, the South American countries, and US is also the biggest exporter of the US is also the biggest exporter of avocados. But the avocado cost in India is much higher than anywhere else. Even though in US it's cheap, like in terms of the prices and everything, but the demand also is growing in India on the avocado side. So if you just study this fruit as an example, then you'll see the Keynesian economy at work, that how the inflation is a managed commodity. It is managed and for political purposes, and it can be managed easily for non-political purposes. So how do you think the in politics today is playing a role in deciding the food prices for the whole world?
Well, I agree with you on avocados because we are importing avocados. Now, large part of the cost of avocados is the transportation and then the import duty. And that increases the price. I don't understand why Indians have to be crazy about it. We have better things in India which is available at a lower price. But then, yeah, for taste buds, whosoever want to buy, they can buy it. Having said that, inflation does have a political angle. administrative angle, and that has always been the case. Rather, the short, during the Tughlaq and the Khilji time, 50% of the farm produce was compulsorily sold to the government at a much lower price so that they could give it away to the soldiers and ensure that they can run their treasury, their operations, as well as there is no impact of inflation. But that impacted the farmers very badly. So politics has an impact because then farmers, if they had to recover on the balance 50%, they had to charge a higher price if they had to recover their cost and their livelihood out of it. Having said that, in India as well, we see the similar thing, that there is a whole intermediaries or the traders, or what we in Hindi call as adatiyas, intermediaries, the network who buy from the farmers and sell it at a much higher price. I can give you one example. There is a city close by called Nasik. I'm sure you know it. It is around 200 250 kilometers from Bombay. And all the vegetable supply in Bombay comes from Nasik. Now, Nasik farmer sells that particular vegetables to a local trader who is politically connected at around 4 to 5 rupees per kg. It comes down to APMCs in Bombay, that is Vashi, Kalyan, and other places, and it is sold at anywhere from 15 to 20 rupees. Who makes the differential? It is the intermediary. Remove, say, 4 5 rupees additional cost for transportation and labor, loading, unloading, and everything. Then, too, it is the intermediary who is taking away 50% of the total cost for doing nothing. And who ensures that this whole ecosystem survives and thrives? It is the political ecosystem. Rather, when Prime Minister Modi went on to legislate 3 farm bills so that the stranglehold of these intermediaries who are in turn only fleecing the farmers is broken, so that they can get a higher price and the consumers can get at a lower price. So inflation can be controlled, at the same time the farm income can be doubled or increased significantly. And what happened? We saw the whole Shingu border and the farmer protest and everything. Farmer protest, or rather, a very small set of intermediaries who protested. So politics does have an impact on the inflation in many ways. If tomorrow the pricing of labor increases, if government increases the cost, the labor cost under Manrega, which is a rural employment guarantee scheme where government ensures that a laborer gets a minimum wage of around 180 rupees. So it would be around $2.50 per day. Then if government increases, automatically the availability of labor in the market and the cost of the labor will increase, the availability will decrease. This has actually happened in the past as well, where Manrega resulted in increase in the cost of farm labor, and thus MSP had to be increased. So politics does have an impact. Even look at entry barriers, non-tariff and tariff entry barriers. If tomorrow they decide that we don't want to buy from certain place and they ban it, like they have banned Russian imports, sanctions, what happens? The price shoots up. Now today in America, what is the food price inflation? What is the reason? One is the non-availability of Russian wheat. So this is how politics does have. I agree with you on this.
Now, coming to China, a little bit of China, because China is the global manufacturing hub and gradually being displaced by Southeast Asian countries and particularly by India. So that has also impacted the American prices also to a large extent, because America is largely dependent on China for everything, for most of the smaller things. So do you think that the Chinese production decline, manufacturing decline, can further increase global inflation because they're supplying raw products or smaller items to even India in a big volume actually?
No, definitely yes. I see that as a major concern. What I'm not able to understand, see, China has impacted Indian markets very badly. They started with multivitamins. They flooded multivitamins in such a manner that all the multivitamin manufacturers in India had to close down because they could not compete with Chinese products. The price of landed cost of multivitamins in India, Chinese multivitamins in India, was much lesser than the raw material cost in India for other multivitamin manufacturers, local multivitamin manufacturers. So my concern is, what is China doing? It's a black hole. We are not able to understand what is China really doing. Are they incurring a loss and selling us at a price which is attractive, or they are just trying to destroy the industry and then increase the price, or and how they are sustaining in the meantime. However, if China starts closing, which looks very difficult, it will take a lot of time. I think at least 10 to 15 years conservative, because all those manufacturing capacities have to be moved out. Today, global FDI stock in China is around more than $1 trillion, which is huge. Moving that money out from China, finding another economically viable uh, jurisdiction, and having good manufacturing practices, good logistics, integrated with the global supply chain, it is going to take time. And India will have to work on that particular area, especially cutting down on the cost. We have huge costs in terms of compliance, in terms of management, in terms of other red tapeism, other local issues where the manufacturers have to end up paying some local people. All those things have to be reduced. At the same time, infrastructure has to be improved. We have done our infrastructure, roads and highways minister, Mr. Gadkari, has done a wonderful job in last 7 years, 8 years, in improving the quality of infrastructure, the ability to uh, transport products at a much lower cost and much more faster to other places. But still, a lot more has to be done. And if we are able to manage it, then I think a lot of capacities will move into India, which have moved from China to other places, including Vietnam. But I don't understand. What I don't understand is how is China able to sell at a lower price? I'll give you one example. A plastic engineering guy in India who has done, who is a professional in the area of manufacturing of plastics, and he has his own unit, and he makes those plastic flowers for decoration and everything. And his customer told him that in China we are getting the same product for 8 rupees, whereas he was charging 25 rupees. And he reworked the whole thing and said that I'm not, my raw material cost is more than 8 rupees. How is China able to manufacture at such a lower price? And he himself went over there. There is no difference except for the economies of scale. But what is China doing to ensure that they are able to dump products in across the world at such a lower price? That is something that is a mystery for me, Aditya ji.
Thank you so much, Sumit ji, and so very clear views on everything, and that suits a mathematician or chartered accountant because you have very clear views on things because you see things from the point of view of money, where the money flows, and that's where the economy goes. And like in any business, cash flow is very important. For economy, the money flow is very important. So thank you so much, and namaste, and we'll touch again on some other topic later on.
Sure, it was a pleasure talking to you. Namaste.
Namaste.